She was struggling to rebuild her life after betrayal. He was a millionaire hiding behind simple clothes and modest words. When their worlds collided at a Saturday morning run club, neither expected what would happen next.
I wasn't looking where I was going. I'm so sorry.
Best kind of impression. Shows you're committed enough to tackle anything in your path.
What started as an accidental bump became coffee dates, shared dreams, and a connection that felt completely real. But when she arrived at his door to deliver furniture and saw the mansion, everything changed.
You're Mr. Hale, the client? You sat there while I told you about struggling to pay off debt, and you never once mentioned that you live in a mansion.
I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I just wanted you to know me. The real me, not the bank account.
Suddenly, the woman who'd found love again discovered the man she trusted had been living a lie. Can two hearts from different worlds overcome deception and class divides? And will Nathan prove his love is real before Zariah runs away forever? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. The early morning sun cast long shadows across Piedmont Park as Zariah Blake tied her running shoes, her fingers trembling slightly. At 25, she never imagined she'd be starting over, rebuilding her life piece by piece after Derek had torn it apart. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, adjusting her bright orange headband. "It's just running, one foot in front of the other." But joining this Saturday morning run club meant more than exercise. It meant reclaiming control, proving to herself that she could still breathe without the man who'd spent 2 years making her feel small. Zariah straightened her shoulders and approached the gathering of runners, stretching near the park entrance. Most were chatting in small groups, their easy laughter making her even more aware of how alone she felt. First time? A friendly woman with grey-streaked hair handed Zariah a name tag. "Is it that obvious?" Zariah smiled nervously, writing her name in bold letters. "We were all new once. I'm Patty, club coordinator. The 5-mile group meets over there." She pointed to a cluster of fit-looking runners. 3-mile group is by the water fountain." Zariah nodded. "I'll try the 3-mile today." Walking toward the smaller group, Zariah checked her phone. Another text from her mother. "Don't forget dinner tomorrow. Bringing someone special for you to meet." She sighed. Her mother meant well but couldn't understand that the last thing Zariah needed was another man in her life. Lost in thought, she didn't notice the tall figure in her path until it was too late. Her shoulder collided with something solid, and suddenly she was stumbling forward. Water splashed across her new running shoes as she grabbed for balance, her fingers clutching a stranger's arm. They both tumbled onto the grass, an awkward tangle of limbs and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," a deep voice said immediately, even though Zariah had clearly run into him. She looked up, mortified, into the kindest grey eyes she'd ever seen. The man they belonged to was already gathering his now empty water bottle, his curly hair falling across his forehead. "No, it was totally my fault," Zariah insisted, scrambling to her feet. "I wasn't looking where I was going." The man stood, brushing grass from his plain grey sweatshirt. Nothing about him was flashy or attention-seeking, just a regular guy with an extraordinary smile that somehow reached all the way to those thoughtful eyes. "I'm Nathan," he said, extending his hand. "Nathan Hale. Zariah Blake." His hand was warm, his grip gentle but firm. First day here, already making an impression. Best kind of impression. Nathan's smile widened. "Shows you're committed enough to tackle anything in your path, even innocent bystanders." For the first time in months, Zariah felt herself genuinely laugh. "Well, when you put it that way, I sound heroic instead of clumsy." "Exactly my point." Nathan picked up her fallen phone, checking that it wasn't damaged before handing it back. "Which group are you joining?" 3-mile. "You?" "Same." He seemed pleased by this coincidence. "Mind if I run with you? I know the route well." Something about his unassuming manner made Zariah lower her guard, just a fraction. "I'd like that. Might keep me from knocking down any more unsuspecting runners." As the group gathered for pre-run stretches, Zariah couldn't help noticing how easily Nathan blended in. Nothing about him screamed for attention, yet there was something compelling in his quiet confidence. When they started running, Zariah expected awkward silence, but conversation flowed naturally between them. Nathan asked thoughtful questions about her work as a delivery coordinator, listening intently, as if her job managing furniture deliveries was fascinating. "So you're basically a problem solver," he concluded, as they rounded a bend in the trail. "Never thought of it that way," Zariah admitted, trying not to sound winded at mile 2. "But I guess I am. Rich people want their fancy couches yesterday, and I make it happen. Rich people can be the worst, Nathan agreed, slowing his pace slightly to match hers. Speaking from experience? Zariah teased. A shadow crossed his face so quickly she almost missed it. Let's just say I've seen enough to know money doesn't buy character. By the time they completed the 3 miles, Zariah's legs were burning, but her spirit felt lighter than it had in months. When the group dispersed, Nathan lingered. Same time next week? He asked, his voice casual but his eyes hopeful. I'll be here, Zariah promised. Might even bring a helmet for protection. His laughter followed her all the way to her car. Back in her small apartment, Zariah soaked in a hot bath, replaying the morning in her mind. She'd gone to the run club seeking solitude, a chance to rebuild herself away from the wreckage Derek had left behind. Instead, she'd found Nathan. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Tasha. How was run club? Any cute guys or just fitness freaks? Zariah hesitated before typing, met someone. Nice guy. Nothing special. But even as she sent the message, she knew it wasn't entirely true. There was something special about Nathan, though she couldn't quite name it. Sunday dinner at her mother's modest home in South Atlanta was the usual mix of delicious food and pointed questions. Still working all those overtime hours? Gloria Blake asked, passing a bowl of buttery mashed potatoes. Bills don't pay themselves, Mama. Zariah avoided mentioning that some of those extra hours were still going toward paying off the credit card debt Derek had left her with. Speaking of bills, Marcus's accounting firm is doing very well, Gloria said, nodding toward the balding man beside her. Tell Zariah about your new car, Marcus. For the next 20 minutes, Zariah endured Marcus's detailed description of his luxury sedan, complete with heated seats and a sound system worth more than her monthly rent. Must be nice, she said when he finally paused for breath. Could be yours, too, her mother interjected with all the subtlety of a bullhorn. A good man with good money. Mama, please, Gloria leaned forward. All I'm saying is, after what you went through with Derek, you deserve someone stable, someone established. Later, helping her mother with dishes, Zariah confronted the matchmaking. I'm not looking for another relationship, Mama, especially not with someone who talks about his car like it's a person. Gloria's hands stilled in the soapy water. I cleaned rich people's houses for 20 years before my back gave out. You know what I learned? The ones who flash their money are never as rich as they pretend. But the quiet ones, with real money, they're dangerous in a different way. They play at being ordinary until they've got you hooked. Then suddenly there's a whole world of rules you didn't know about. This isn't about Marcus or his boring car, Zariah said, realizing the truth. This is about Dad. Gloria's eyes hardened. Your father came into my life like a prince in disguise, said he was just a regular man trying to make it. Then his family's money came calling, and suddenly I wasn't good enough for their precious heir. So yes, I worry when you talk about nice men who seem too good to be true. Zariah hugged her mother, understanding her fears even as she rejected them. Not every man is going to be like Dad. Maybe not, Gloria conceded. But keep your eyes open, baby. That's all I ask. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. Despite her mother's warnings echoing in her mind, Zariah found herself looking forward to seeing Nathan again. This time she arrived early, scanning the gathering runners for his familiar figure. Her heart skipped when she spotted him, already stretching by the water fountain. He wore the same plain sweatshirt, but his face lit up when he saw her, making something warm unfurl in her chest. You came back, he said, sounding genuinely pleased. Promised I would. Zariah tried for casual, but her smile gave her away. No water bottle today. Safety precaution. Nathan's eyes crinkled at the corners. Can't be too careful around dangerous runners like you. As they joined the 3-mile group, Zariah noticed how Nathan greeted everyone by name, asking about a child's soccer game or someone's recent vacation. He remembered details, cared about answers. It was so different from Derek, who'd never bothered learning her friends' names even after 2 years. Their pace was better matched today, and conversation flowed easily between them as they jogged through the park. So what do you do when you're not running people over in parks? Nathan asked as they reached mile 1. Zariah laughed. Work, mostly. The furniture company keeps me busy 6 days a week. Sundays are for my mama's cooking and her not-so-subtle attempts to marry me off to boring men with nice cars. Sounds exhausting. The matchmaking, not the job. Both, actually. But the job pays the bills, so it wins. She glanced at him. What about you? What pays your bills? Nathan's stride faltered slightly before he answered. I work with computers, software development. Like coding and stuff? Sounds complicated. It can be, but it's mostly just solving puzzles. He redirected smoothly. Tell me more about your delivery job. Worst customer ever. By the time they finished their run, Zariah had shared stories about entitled customers and impossible delivery windows, while Nathan had mostly listened, offering occasional insights that showed he was truly paying attention. Coffee? He suggested as they cooled down. There's a place just across from the park. Zariah hesitated, her mother's warnings competing with the genuine interest in Nathan's eyes. I should get home, get ready for work. On Saturday? Rich people want their couches on weekends too. She smiled to soften the rejection. Rain check? Absolutely. If he was disappointed, he hid it well. Next Saturday? It's a date. The words slipped out before she could catch them. Nathan's smile turned thoughtful. Is it? Zariah took a deep breath. It could be, if you wanted. I'd like that, he said simply. Very much. As she walked to her car, Zariah felt lighter somehow, as if running alongside Nathan was helping her shed the weight of past disappointments. For the first time since Derek, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, there were still good men in the world, and maybe Nathan Hale was one of them. Little did she know that their budding connection was about to be tested in ways neither of them could imagine, when the worlds they inhabited, his of wealth and privilege, hers of hard work and simple honesty, would collide in the most unexpected way. The next 3 Saturdays fell into a pattern that Zariah found herself looking forward to all week. Run with Nathan, coffee afterward at the little cafe across from the park, and conversations that flowed so easily she often lost track of time. Nathan was unlike any man she'd ever known. He listened, really listened when she spoke. He remembered details about her job, her mother, even her childhood dream of opening a small bookstore someday. Why books? He asked during their 3rd coffee date, his grey eyes focused entirely on her. They were my escape growing up, Zariah admitted, warming her hands around her mug. Mama worked long hours cleaning for rich families. I spent a lot of time alone, and books kept me company. Nathan nodded, understanding without pity. What's stopping you from opening that store now? Zariah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Reality? Money? The fact that I'm still paying off Derek's debts? She hadn't meant to mention Derek, had been carefully avoiding talking about her ex, but something about Nathan's attentiveness made the words slip out. Derek? Nathan's voice was gentle, not pushing, but creating space for her to share if she wanted. Zariah stared into her coffee. My ex. 2 years together, and all I got was a broken heart and maxed out credit cards. I'm sorry, Nathan said simply. No platitudes, no immediate advice, just acknowledgement of her pain. It was my own fault, she continued, surprising herself with her honesty. He was so charming at first, took me to fancy restaurants, bought expensive gifts I couldn't afford to return. By the time I realized he was using my credit cards to fund his gambling, I was in too deep. Nathan's hand moved across the table, covering hers. That's not your fault, Zariah, that's manipulation. The warmth of his touch traveled up her arm, settled somewhere in her chest. Anyway, that's why I'm working overtime at a job I barely tolerate. 2 more years and I'll be debt-free. Then maybe I can start thinking about bookstores again. Dreams matter, Nathan said quietly. Sometimes they're all that gets us through the hard days. Something in his tone made Zariah look up sharply. Sounds like you know something about hard days yourself. A shadow crossed his face. Everyone has their struggles. Even computer guys with great running form, she teased, trying to lighten the mood. His smile returned, but his eyes remained thoughtful. Especially them. At work on Monday, Zariah found herself humming as she organized the day's delivery schedule, earning a curious look from her co-worker, Jen. Someone's in a good mood, Jen observed, leaning against Zariah's desk. This wouldn't have anything to do with that running guy you mentioned, would it? Zariah tried to suppress her smile. Maybe. Details, please. Inquiring minds need to know. Not much to tell. His name is Nathan. He's nice. We've had coffee a few times after Run Club. Nice? That's the best you can do. Jen rolled her eyes. What does he do? Where does he live? Is he hot? He works with computers, software development. And yes, he's... Zariah paused, thinking of Nathan's kind eyes and the way his curls fell across his forehead when he laughed. He's definitely attractive, but not in an obvious way. It's more how he makes me feel. And how's that? Seen, Zariah said simply. Like what I have to say matters. Jen's teasing smile softened. After Derek the jerk, you deserve that. Their conversation was interrupted by the office manager dropping a stack of delivery orders on Zariah's desk. "Special handling," he said briskly. "The Buckhead deliveries need white glove service. The client paid extra for setup and removal of old furniture." Zariah flipped through the orders, noting the addresses in Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood. "I'll take Marcus and Keith for these, they're our best." "Good. The last one's scheduled for Saturday. Can you personally oversee it? The client specifically requested our most experienced coordinator." Zariah's heart sank. There went her running date with Nathan. Of course. She sent Nathan a quick text that evening, explaining the situation. His response came immediately. "Work comes first. I understand completely. Rain check for coffee? I'll miss seeing you on the trail." The warmth in his simple message made her smile. Unlike Derek, who'd always made her feel guilty for prioritizing work, Nathan seemed to respect her responsibilities. "Rain check accepted," she texted back. "Save some miles for me." Saturday morning arrived with unexpected anxiety. Zariah dressed carefully in her company polo and black pants, checking her appearance more thoroughly than usual for a workday. "It's just because it's a Buckhead client," she told her reflection. But she knew it was more than that. For the first time in a long time, she cared about what someone thought of her, cared what Nathan thought. The delivery truck followed her car through the exclusive neighborhood, past sprawling mansions set back from the street behind elaborate gates. The navigation system finally directed them to a modern glass and stone structure at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. "Nice digs," Marcus whistled as they pulled up to the gate. "Wonder what they do for a living." "Probably inherited it," Keith said, adjusting his uniform. "Old money." Zariah pressed the intercom button, and a crisp voice answered, "Yes?" "Atlanta luxury furniture delivery for Mr. Hale," she said professionally. There was a pause before the gate swung open silently. Zariah led the way up the curved driveway, mentally reviewing the delivery details. Custom-built sectional sofa, handcrafted in Italy, removal of existing furniture, set up in the main living area. The house was even more impressive up close. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a perfectly manicured lawn that sloped down to what appeared to be a private lake. The front door was solid wood, at least 10 feet tall. Zariah took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. She heard footsteps approaching, then the door swung open, and her world tilted on its axis. Nathan stood there, hair slightly damp as if he'd just showered after a run, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans that she now realized probably cost more than her monthly rent. The recognition in his eyes quickly turned to something like panic. "Zariah." His voice was barely a whisper. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The clipboard in her hands suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You're Mr. Hale," she finally managed, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. "The client." Nathan swallowed hard. "I can explain." Behind her, Marcus cleared his throat awkwardly. "Where do you want the sofa, sir?" Nathan's eyes never left Zariah's face. "Through here." "The living room." He stepped back, gesturing for the delivery men to enter. Zariah followed on autopilot, her mind racing. The interior of the house was stunning, open and airy, with art on the walls that she instinctively knew was original and expensive. Nothing like the modest apartment he'd led her to believe he lived in. Everything about Nathan, his simple clothes, his unassuming manner, the way he'd listened to her struggles with money, now felt like a calculated lie. She supervised the removal of the old furniture and the placement of the new sectional with mechanical efficiency, avoiding Nathan's gaze. When Marcus asked him to sign for the delivery, she stepped outside, needing air that wasn't filled with the scent of wealth and deception. The delivery men finished quickly, sensing the tension. As they drove away, Zariah stood by her car, keys in hand, desperate to escape. "Zariah, please." Nathan appeared beside her, his eyes pleading. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice was steady despite the storm inside her. "That you pretended to be someone you're not? That you sat there while I told you about struggling to pay off debt, and you never once mentioned that you live in a mansion?" "I wasn't pretending," he insisted. "Everything I shared with you was real, except the part where you're obviously rich enough to buy half of Atlanta." She gestured at the house behind him. "What is this, Nathan? Some kind of game? Slumming with the working class for fun?" Pain flashed across his face. "It's not like that. When people know about the money, everything changes. They want something from me, or they treat me differently. With you, for the first time in years, I was just me. How convenient for you." Zariah felt tears threatening and blinked them back furiously. "You got to decide what parts of yourself to share, while I laid my life bare. Do you have any idea how humiliating this feels? I never meant to humiliate you. I was going to tell you, but I wanted you to know me first. The real me, not the bank account. The real you. Zariah laughed bitterly. The real you lives here, Nathan. The real you has probably never worried about a bill in your life. Meanwhile, I've been working overtime to pay off debt my ex left me with, and you sat there listening like you understood. I do understand. No, you don't. The dam broke, and tears spilled down her cheeks. You can't possibly understand what it's like to count every dollar, to choose between fixing your car or paying your electric bill. You were playing poor while I'm actually living it. Nathan reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't. She fumbled with her car keys. Just don't. Zariah, please. What we have is real. The money doesn't change who I am with you, but it changes everything for me. She got into her car, hands shaking. My mother cleaned houses like yours for 20 years, broke her back for people like you, and now I find out I've been… What, your little experiment in how the other half lives? That's not fair, Nathan said, his voice breaking. I care about you. The money doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have it. Zariah started the engine. Goodbye, Nathan. She drove away, vision blurred with tears, her mother's warnings echoing in her mind. They play at being ordinary until they've got you hooked. Then suddenly there's a whole world of rules you didn't know about. Zariah called in sick on Monday, something she'd never done before. She couldn't face the office, couldn't bear Jen's questions about her weekend. Instead, she stayed in bed, replaying every moment with Nathan, searching for clues she should have seen. The software development job that he'd been so vague about, the way he deflected personal questions, his understanding of rich people that had seemed empathetic at the time, but now felt like insider knowledge. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from him. Please let me explain. What we have is real, Zariah. I'm still the same person you ran with. She left them all unanswered. On Tuesday, flowers arrived at her apartment. Simple daisies, not extravagant roses. The card read, I'm sorry, no more secrets, please call me Nathan. She put them in water but didn't call. By Wednesday, her mother was concerned enough to stop by unannounced, bringing homemade soup and motherly intuition. You've been crying, Gloria observed, setting the soup container on Zariah's small kitchen counter. What happened? Zariah considered deflecting but didn't have the energy. You were right, Mama. About men who pretend to be something they're not. She told her mother everything. Meeting Nathan at Run Club, their coffee dates, discovering his mansion in Buckhead. Gloria's expression hardened as she listened. Men like that, she said when Zariah finished, always leave with more than they gave. Your father took my youth and left me with a broken heart and a child to raise alone. Nathan's not like that, Zariah found herself saying, surprising both of them. He's kind and thoughtful. He just lied about his circumstances. A lie is a lie, baby. Doesn't matter if it comes wrapped in kindness. But as the week progressed, Zariah found herself questioning her own reaction. Had Nathan actually lied, or had he simply omitted details? He'd never claimed to be struggling financially. She'd just assumed based on his modest appearance and his empathy for her situation. And underneath her hurt and embarrassment was a truth she couldn't ignore. She missed him. Missed his gentle humor, the way he listened, how he made her feel valued. Saturday morning arrived and Zariah found herself driving to Piedmont Park, almost against her will. She told herself she was just going for a run, that she needed the exercise after a week of wallowing, but as she parked her car, she knew she was hoping to see him. The run club was gathering as usual. Patty waved when she spotted Zariah. Haven't seen you in a while, the coordinator said warmly. Nathan said you'd been busy with work, so he'd been coming without her. The thought made something twist in Zariah's chest. Is he here today? She asked, trying to sound casual. Patty nodded toward the trail. Already started. Said he needed to clear his head. Been like that the past couple weeks, running alone, pushing himself hard. Everything okay between you two? Zariah didn't know how to answer that. It's complicated. She set off down the trail, her pace faster than usual. At the 2-mile marker, she spotted him ahead, his familiar figure moving steadily along the path. For a moment she considered turning back, then he glanced over his shoulder, and their eyes met. Nathan stopped running immediately, waiting as she approached. He looked different, tired, with shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. You came, he said softly when she reached him. Zariah tried to hold on to her anger, but standing face to face with him, it began to slip away. I needed to run. Just run? Or run with me? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm still angry with you. You have every right to be." He ran a hand through his curls, a gesture she now recognized as nervousness. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." "Why didn't you?" Nathan sighed, looking out over the park. "People see the house, the money. They don't see me. My last relationship, she was with me for what I could give her, not who I was. When it ended, I swore I wouldn't let that happen again. So you decided to lie instead." "I didn't lie about who I am, Zariah. I just didn't volunteer the financial details." His eyes found hers, sincere and pained. "The man who runs with you, who drinks coffee with you, who listens to your dreams about opening a bookstore, that's the real me. The money is just circumstance." Zariah shook her head. "It's not just circumstance, Nathan. It's privilege. It's opportunity. It's security that I've never known." "I know, and I should have been honest about that. But please believe me when I say everything else was real, especially how I feel about you." A jogger passed them, breaking the moment. Zariah took a step back, needing distance to think clearly. "I need time," she said finally. "This is a lot to process." Nathan nodded, disappointment clear in his eyes but respecting her boundary. "I understand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, not for who I am, but for not trusting you with the whole truth." As she turned to leave, he called after her, "Zariah, I'll be here next Saturday, and the Saturday after that, for as long as it takes." She didn't answer, but as she walked away, she knew she'd be back. The question was whether she could learn to trust him again, and whether the world he inhabited, so different from her own, would ultimately tear them apart. Back at her apartment, Zariah finally opened the last text Nathan had sent the day before. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know that meeting you has changed my life. For the first time, someone saw me. Not my money, not what I could do for them, just me. I didn't tell you about my financial situation because I was afraid of losing that. Instead, I might have lost you anyway. If you give me another chance, I promise no more secrets." Just two people running side by side wherever the path leads. Zariah read the message 3 times, her heart at war with her pride. Then, slowly, she began to type a response. Zariah stared at her phone, thumbs hovering over the keyboard. After several attempts at writing and deleting, she finally sent a simple message. "I'm not ready to forgive you yet, but I'm willing to listen." Nathan's response came almost immediately. "That's all I'm asking for. Thank you." She set her phone down, emotions swirling. Part of her wanted to protect her heart, to walk away before Nathan could hurt her like Derek had. But another part, a stronger part, couldn't deny the connection they'd built over those Saturday mornings. Had it all been a lie? Or was there something real beneath the omissions? Her mother would tell her to run. Derek would have laughed at her hesitation, called her foolish for even considering giving Nathan another chance. But neither of them had felt the quiet understanding in Nathan's eyes when she talked about her dreams, or the gentle way he'd listened without judging. Monday morning brought a fresh stack of deliveries at work, and Zariah threw herself into the distraction. Around noon, Jen appeared at her desk with 2 sandwiches. "Lunch break," she announced, dropping into the chair across from Zariah. "And you're going to tell me why you've been walking around like a zombie." Zariah accepted the sandwich with a weak smile. "That obvious, huh? Girl, you've checked your phone approximately 500 times this morning. Something's up." With a sigh, Zariah explained her discovery at Nathan's house and their recent messages. "Wait," Jen interrupted, eyes wide. "Your running guy lives in a mansion in Buckhead? Like, actual mansion? That's what you took from this story?" Zariah shook her head. "Yes, he's apparently loaded, and he never told me." "Okay, I get why you're upset," Jen said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "But let me play devil's advocate for a second. If he'd told you right away that he was rich, would you have given him a chance? After Derek?" The question hit Zariah like a punch to the gut. "No," she admitted reluctantly. "Probably not. So maybe he wasn't being manipulative. Maybe he just wanted a fair shot. But it feels like he wasn't being honest about who he really is." "Is money who he is, though?" Jen raised an eyebrow. "Or is it just something he has?" The question followed Zariah through the rest of her day, echoing in her mind as she drove home. By Thursday, she'd made a decision. She would see Nathan on Saturday. Not at the run club where they'd be surrounded by others, but somewhere they could really talk. She texted him, "Coffee tomorrow after work, the place across from the park, 6 p.m. His reply was immediate. "I'll be there." The cafe was quiet when Zariah arrived, just a few customers lingering over late afternoon drinks. She spotted Nathan immediately, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees already waiting. He stood when he saw her, uncertainty written across his face. "You came," he said, echoing his words from the park. "I said I would." Zariah sat down, wrapping her hands around the coffee cup. "Thank you for this. I ordered it how you like it. 1 sugar, splash of cream." The fact that he remembered such a small detail made something twist in her chest. "Nathan, Before you say anything," he interrupted gently, "I want to show you something." He pulled out his phone, opened a photo, and slid it across the table. It showed a much younger Nathan standing between an older couple in front of a small, modest house. "My parents," he explained, "and our home in Macon where I grew up. Dad was a high school science teacher. Mum worked at the public library. We weren't poor, but we weren't wealthy either." Zariah studied the photo, noting the pride in his parents' faces and the gangly teenager with the same kind eyes she'd come to know. "The money came later," Nathan continued. "I created a security software program in college. It was just a project at first, something I was passionate about. Then a tech company offered to buy it for more than I could comprehend at 22. "So you're self-made," Zariah said quietly. "If you want to call it that. But the point is, the money isn't who I am. It's not how I was raised." He leaned forward. "When I met you, I wasn't pretending to be someone else. I was just being the person my parents raised me to be. Someone who values hard work and honesty and treating people with respect." "But you weren't honest with me," Zariah pointed out. "No, I wasn't. Not completely." Nathan ran a hand through his curls. "After my last relationship ended, I promised myself I'd never let anyone get close to me because of what I had rather than who I was. So I started downplaying the money, dressing simply, driving a regular car, living a double life. Living authentically in some ways and hiding in others," he corrected. "Then I met you, and for the first time in years, I felt like someone saw me, the real me. I was afraid if I told you about the money, everything would change. So instead I found out by delivering your custom Italian sofa," Zariah said, but there was less bite in her tone. "Not my finest moment." Nathan's smile was rueful. "For what it's worth, I was planning to tell you. I just wanted more time, wanted to be sure what we had was real." Zariah took a sip of her coffee, gathering her thoughts. "My ex used money to control me," she said finally. "He made big purchases on my credit cards, told me not to worry about it, that he'd pay it all back. When I found out he'd been gambling, he promised he'd fix everything. Then one day he was just gone, left me with the debt and a note saying he was sorry." "I'm not Derek," Nathan said quietly. "I know that. Logically, I know that." Zariah met his gaze. "But finding out you'd hidden something so significant, it brought it all back. The feeling of being lied to, of not knowing what was real. Everything between us has been real, Zariah. Every conversation, every laugh, every run. That's what I need you to believe." The sincerity in his eyes made her want to believe him, but there was still one question nagging at her. "Why me, Nathan? You could be with anyone, someone from your world who understands that life. That world is full of people who want something from me," he said simply. "You wanted nothing but my company. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" They talked for hours, until the cafe staff began stacking chairs around them. Nathan told her about growing up in a middle-class family, about the shock of sudden wealth, about relationships that had failed because people saw his bank account instead of him. Zariah shared more about her childhood, her mother's struggles, her dreams for the future that always seemed just out of reach. As they finally stood to leave, Nathan asked, "Will I see you tomorrow? At Run Club?" Zariah hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be there." The smile that lit up his face made her heart skip. "I'll save some miles for you." Gloria Blake was not pleased when Zariah mentioned seeing Nathan again. "After he lied to you?" Her mother's voice rose over the phone. "Baby, have you learned nothing from what happened with your father? Or with Derek?" "Nathan's different, Mama," Zariah insisted, pacing her small living room. "He didn't tell me about the money because he wanted me to know him, not his bank account." "Men like that always have excuses," Gloria said firmly. "Always have reasons that sound good on the surface. Your father had reasons too." "I'm not marrying him, Mama. I'm just giving him a chance to explain, to see if there's something worth saving." Her mother's sigh was heavy with concern. "Just be careful, Zariah. Men with money live in a different world. If you step into that world, make sure you don't lose yourself in it." Those words echoed in Zariah's mind as she drove to the park Saturday morning. Would Nathan's world eventually swallow her own? Could two people from such different circumstances really build something lasting? He was waiting for her at their usual meeting spot, his face lighting up when he saw her. There was no pretense now, no hiding. Just Nathan with his kind eyes and gentle smile, looking at her like she was the only person in the crowded park. Their run was quieter than usual, both of them slightly tentative in this new, more honest version of their relationship. But by the time they reached mile 2, some of the old ease had returned. "I've missed this," Nathan admitted as they rounded a familiar bend in the trail. "Missed you." "I've missed it too," Zariah found herself saying. After coffee, Nathan walked her to her car. "I'd like to show you something if you're free this afternoon." Zariah hesitated. "What kind of something?" "Something important to me. Something real." His eyes held hers. "Do you trust me enough for that?" The question hung between them, weighted with meaning beyond this moment. Did she trust him? Not completely, not yet, but enough to take one more step forward? "Yes," she said finally. "I trust you that much." Nathan's smile was worth the risk. "Meet me back here at 4. We can take my car." Zariah spent the hours in between questioning her decision. Was she being naive, letting Nathan back into her life so quickly, or would walking away be the bigger mistake? At 4 o'clock, she was waiting in the park, stomach fluttering with nerves. Nathan pulled up in a car she hadn't seen before, not flashy, but definitely expensive. "Is this what you usually drive?" she asked as she slid into the passenger seat. "No," he admitted. "I have a less conspicuous car I use most days, but this one was a gift from my parents after the software sale. They insisted on doing something nice for me with the money, even though I wanted to buy them a house." "Did you? Buy them a house?" Nathan nodded, pulling into traffic. "Eventually, a comfortable place in Macon. Nothing extravagant. Dad still complains it's too big for them, but Mum loves the garden." They drove for about 20 minutes, heading away from the wealthy neighborhoods Zariah had expected. Instead, they pulled up in front of a modest brick building in a working-class area she recognized. "Where are we?" she asked, confused. "Come see." Nathan led her to the door, which was locked. He pulled out a key and opened it, gesturing for her to enter. Inside was a large open space, mostly empty except for some construction materials and bookshelves lining one wall. Sunlight streamed through big windows, illuminating the dusty floor. "What is this place?" Zariah turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "It's a work in progress," Nathan said, watching her reaction carefully. "I bought it 6 months ago, been renovating it slowly." Zariah ran her hand along one of the bookshelves. "You're opening a bookstore?" "No." Nathan stepped closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "But you are, if you want to." The world seemed to stop. "What?" "Your dream. A small bookstore where people can find the same escape you did as a child." He gestured around the space. "I bought the building as an investment property, but after you told me about your dream, I started seeing it differently, started imagining what it could be." Zariah's heart pounded in her chest. "Nathan, I can't accept something like this. It's too much." "I'm not giving it to you," he clarified quickly. "I'm offering you a partnership. The building is the investment. The business would be yours to build, your vision, your work. I'd be the silent partner." "Why would you do this?" Nathan's expression softened. "Because I believe in you, because everyone deserves a chance to make their dreams real, and because I've learned that money is only valuable when you use it to create something meaningful." Zariah walked the perimeter of the space, mind racing. It was exactly the kind of place she'd imagined, cozy, but with enough room for comfortable chairs and reading nooks. A community space where books could change lives the way they'd changed hers. "This is overwhelming," she said finally. "I know, and you don't have to decide anything today." Nathan stayed where he was, giving her space. "I just wanted you to see it, to know that I was listening when you shared your dream, that it mattered to me." The gesture touched something deep inside her, not because of the money involved, but because he'd heard her, really heard her, in a way no one else ever had. "Thank you for showing me," she said softly. On the drive back, they talked about possibilities. Nathan explained that the offer stood regardless of what happened between them personally. The building was a good investment either way, and if she decided to pursue the bookstore dream, he would help however she wanted, financially, practically, or by stepping back completely. "No strings," he promised as they pulled up to her car. "No pressure, just an open door, if and when you're ready to walk through it." Zariah studied his face, searching for any sign of manipulation or control. She found only sincerity and something else, something that made her pulse quicken. "I should go," she said, reaching for the door handle. "This is a lot to process." "Of course." Nathan made no move to stop her. "Take all the time you need." Before she could overthink it, Zariah leaned across the console and kissed his cheek. Thank you for being real with me today." The surprise and hope in his eyes stayed with her all the way home. Over the next few weeks, a new pattern emerged. Saturday runs followed by coffee, occasional dinners at modest restaurants where Nathan seemed perfectly comfortable. He never pushed her to visit his home again, never flaunted his wealth or used it to impress her. If anything, he seemed almost apologetic about it. The subject of the bookstore remained open between them, an opportunity, not an obligation. Zariah found herself driving by the building sometimes, imagining possibilities, sketching floor plans during her lunch breaks. One evening, after a simple dinner at a neighborhood Thai place, Nathan walked her to her car. "I've been thinking," he said, hands in his pockets. "Would you be willing to meet my parents? They're coming to visit next weekend." The question caught Zariah off guard. Meeting parents was a significant step, an acknowledgement that whatever was happening between them was serious. "You've told them about me?" she asked. "Only good things," he assured her with a smile. "They'd like to have dinner at my place on Saturday. Nothing fancy, I promise. Mum insists on cooking whenever she visits, says my kitchen doesn't get enough use." Zariah thought about her mother's warnings, about the worlds that separated her from Nathan. But she also thought about the man who ran beside her every Saturday, who listened to her dreams and believed in them enough to create a space where they might come true. "I'd like that," she said finally. Nathan's smile was like sunrise. "Really? Really?" She reached for his hand, twining her fingers with his. "But you should probably meet my mother too. Fair warning, she's going to be a tougher sell than your parents." "I welcome the challenge," Nathan said, squeezing her hand. "I've got nothing to hide anymore." That Saturday, Zariah found herself standing once again at the gate of Nathan's Buckhead mansion, this time as an invited guest rather than a delivery coordinator. The difference wasn't lost on her. Nathan met her at the door, dressed simply in jeans and a button-down shirt. "They're in the kitchen," he said, taking her hand. "Dad's already made himself at home with the TV remote, and Mom's pretending she doesn't need help with dinner." Zariah had expected to feel intimidated, but Nathan's parents immediately put her at ease. James Hale was a retired science teacher with his son's quiet manner and observant eyes. Maria Hale had the same curls as Nathan, now streaked with silver, and a warmth that filled the enormous kitchen. "So you're the runner who knocked our son off his feet," Maria said, handing Zariah a glass of iced tea, "literally from what he tells us." "It was an accident," Zariah laughed, relaxing despite herself. "Though in retrospect maybe it was fate. I'm just glad he's found someone who knows him for himself," James said, his gaze thoughtful. "This house, the money, it's not who Nathan is. Never has been." "Dad," Nathan warned, "let's not overwhelm Zariah with the heart-to-heart right away." "It's okay," Zariah assured him. "I think I needed to hear that." Over a simple but delicious home-cooked meal, Zariah learned more about Nathan's upbringing, the camping trips they'd taken instead of expensive vacations, the emphasis on education and character over material possessions. She began to understand how a man raised with such values could be uncomfortable with sudden wealth, how he might seek connections based on something deeper than financial status. As the evening wound down, Maria pulled Zariah aside while the men cleared the table. "He's different with you," she said quietly. "More himself than I've seen him in years." "The money complicates things," Zariah admitted. Maria nodded, understanding. "It always will. But Nathan's heart is the same as it was when he was that skinny boy building computers in our garage. If you can see that heart past all the trappings, you'll have something rare." Later, as Nathan walked her to her car, Zariah felt a shift inside herself, a softening of the barriers she'd built since Derek, since learning about Nathan's wealth. "Your parents are wonderful," she told him. "I see a lot of them in you." "High praise," he said, smiling. "They liked you too. A lot." Under the glow of the security lights, with the mansion looming behind them, Zariah made a decision. She reached up and kissed him, not on the cheek this time, but fully, honestly, on the lips. Nathan responded with gentle intensity, his arms encircling her waist. When they pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Zariah rested her forehead against his. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Our worlds are so different." "Maybe," Nathan said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Or maybe we just create a new world together, one that takes the best parts of both." The possibility hung between them, fragile and hopeful. As Zariah drove home, she felt lighter than she had in months, as if the miles between her apartment and Nathan's mansion weren't quite so insurmountable after all. But when she turned onto her street, reality crashed back. Her mother's car was parked outside her apartment, and Gloria Blake was waiting on the steps, her expression a thundercloud. "Where have you been?" she demanded as Zariah approached. "I've been calling for hours." "I had dinner with Nathan and his parents," Zariah explained, instantly on guard. "My phone was on silent. What's wrong?" Gloria's eyes narrowed. "I did some research on your Mr. Hale. Did you know his company laid off 200 workers last year while he bought that mansion? Or that his software is used by companies to replace human employees with automation?" The accusations hit Zariah like physical blows. "That can't be right." "Nathan wouldn't." "It was in the business section of the paper," Gloria insisted. "Nathan Hale, tech entrepreneur, made his fortune selling software that helps companies streamline operations, which is just a fancy way of saying fire people." Zariah's stomach clenched. Nathan had told her about creating security software in college, but he'd been vague about his current business ventures. Was there more he hadn't shared? "I need to talk to him," she said, reaching for her phone. "So he can lie to you again?" Gloria's voice was sharp with concern. "Baby, men like that don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are." As if on cue, Zariah's phone lit up with a text from Nathan. "Thank you for tonight. It meant the world to my parents and to me." The simple message made her heart ache. Was this the same man her mother was describing? The cold businessman who profited from others' misfortune? "I need some time to think," she told her mother, unlocking her apartment door. "I'll call you tomorrow." Alone in her apartment, Zariah pulled up search results for Nathan Hale. The first few articles confirmed what he'd told her: his success with security software in college, the lucrative sale. But deeper research revealed more recent ventures, including a company that specialized in automation technologies. The business journal her mother had mentioned did indeed report layoffs, though the connection to Nathan was less direct than Gloria had implied. His company had provided software to a manufacturing firm that subsequently reduced its workforce. By morning, Zariah was exhausted, her mind spinning with questions. The man who'd shown her the bookstore space, who'd introduced her to his parents, who ran beside her every Saturday, could he really be responsible for hundreds losing their jobs? She needed answers, but not through internet searches or second-hand reports. She needed to hear the truth from Nathan himself. She needed to look into those kind grey eyes and know, once and for all, if what they had was real. With shaking hands, she texted him, "We need to talk. Meet me at the park, our usual spot, 10 a.m. His response was immediate. "I'll be there." The fog was rolling in as Zariah parked her car. Would this conversation be the beginning of something deeper or the end of everything they'd built? Either way, she was determined to face it head-on, with her eyes wide open. Nathan was already waiting, his expression concerned when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" he asked as she approached. Zariah took a deep breath. It was time for the whole truth, whatever that might be. The morning air was crisp as Zariah and Nathan faced each other at their usual meeting spot in the park. The runners and families that normally filled the paths were absent at this early hour, leaving them in a bubble of privacy surrounded by misty trees. "My mother showed me an article," Zariah began without preamble, "about your company, about layoffs." Nathan's expression shifted, not to defensiveness as she'd expected, but to something more complicated. Regret, perhaps, mixed with resignation. "Which article?" he asked quietly. "Does it matter? Is it true?" Zariah crossed her arms, steeling herself against the disappointment she feared was coming. "Did your software help a company fire 200 people last year?" Nathan gestured to a nearby bench. "Can we sit? This isn't a simple yes or no answer." Zariah hesitated, then nodded. As they sat, she maintained distance between them, needing clarity more than comfort. "My original software was for cybersecurity," Nathan began. "That's how I made my first money. But after that, I started a new company focused on business operations, streamlining processes, making systems more efficient. Replacing workers with machines," Zariah translated. "Sometimes, yes," Nathan admitted, meeting her gaze directly. "But it's more complicated than that. The manufacturing company your mother read about, they were already struggling. Foreign competition, outdated equipment. They were months away from closing entirely. So you swooped in and helped them fire people instead. We helped them save 1,000 jobs by making the company viable again." Nathan ran a hand through his curls, a gesture Zariah now recognized as frustration. Yes, 200 positions were eliminated, but without the changes, all 1,200 employees would have lost their jobs when the company went under. Zariah wanted to dismiss his explanation as convenient justification, but his eyes held the same honesty she'd come to trust. "Why didn't you tell me about this part of your business?" she asked. "I did tell you I work in software development, but I didn't go into details because," he sighed, "because it's complicated. Because business decisions that look cold on paper are often about saving what can be saved, rather than letting everything fail." "My mother cleaned houses for 20 years, Zariah said, her voice tight. She worked for people who talked about business decisions while treating her like she was invisible. Now she's a home health aide because her back couldn't take the cleaning anymore. So forgive me if I'm not sympathetic to corporations making tough choices that always seem to hurt people like us." "I understand that," Nathan said quietly. "And I'm not asking you to approve of every business decision I've made. I'm just asking you to believe that I try to do what's right, even when there are no perfect options." Zariah stood, needing to move, to think. "You showed me that bookstore space. You talked about my dreams. Was that just, what, trying to buy my forgiveness?" Pain flashed across Nathan's face. "No, never that." He stayed seated, giving her space. "That offer was genuine, Zariah, because I believe in you, because I thought we could build something meaningful together. But if it feels wrong to you now, I understand." The sincerity in his voice made Zariah pause her pacing. She studied him, this man who lived in two worlds, who had shown her both tenderness and truth. "I need time," she said finally, "to think about all of this, to decide what I believe." Nathan nodded, disappointment clear in his eyes but no argument on his lips. "I understand. Take all the time you need." As she turned to leave, he called after her softly, "Zariah, whatever you decide about us, the bookstore space is still yours if you want it. No strings. That promise doesn't change." She nodded once, unable to speak around the tightness in her throat, and walked away. The week that followed was one of the longest of Zariah's life. She went through the motions at work, delivering furniture to wealthy homes that now reminded her of Nathan's. She fielded concerned texts from him, responding with brief assurances that she was okay, just thinking. Her mother called daily, convinced that Zariah was being manipulated by a man who couldn't possibly understand their world. "Men like that don't change," Gloria insisted during one call. "They just get better at explaining why the rest of us have to." But Tasha offered a different perspective over lunch. "Have you considered that maybe there aren't easy answers?" her friend suggested. "That maybe good people sometimes have to make compromises in a messy world? So I should just accept that his business might hurt people like my mother?" Zariah pushed her salad around the plate. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying that maybe the question isn't whether Nathan is all good or all bad. Maybe it's whether what you two have together is worth working through the complicated parts." That night, Zariah drove to the empty bookstore space. Nathan had given her a key just in case, and now she used it, flipping on the lights and standing in the center of the open room. She could see it so clearly, shelves lined with books that could transport readers to other worlds. Comfortable chairs where children might discover the same escape she had found, a community table for students, for seniors, for anyone needing connection along with stories. Was this dream tainted now, knowing it was made possible by Nathan's wealth? Or was it possible that something good could come from a complicated source? She pulled out her phone and, after a moment's hesitation, called the one person who might truly understand. "Mama, can I come over? I need to talk." An hour later, Zariah sat at her mother's kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "I'm not here for you to tell me what to do," she said, as Gloria sat across from her. "I'm here because I need you to listen. Really listen." Gloria's eyebrows rose, but she nodded. "I'm listening." Zariah told her everything, about Nathan's upbringing, his parents, how he'd built his business from nothing, about the bookstore space and what it could mean for the community, about her own conflicted feelings. "I understand why you're worried," she concluded. "After Dad left, after Derek, but Nathan isn't them. And I'm not asking for your permission. I'm asking for your support, whatever I decide." Gloria was quiet for a long moment. "You really care about him, don't you?" "I do," Zariah admitted. "But I also care about being true to myself, to the values you raised me with." "I raised you to think for yourself," Gloria said, reaching across the table to take her daughter's hand, "and to recognize a good heart when you see one." "Is his heart good, Zariah? When all the money and business is stripped away?" The question hung in the air between them. Zariah thought of Nathan running beside her, matching his pace to hers, Nathan listening to her dreams without judgment, Nathan introducing her to his parents with pride in his eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "His heart is good." Gloria squeezed her hand. Then maybe that's your answer. Saturday dawned foggy and cool. Zariah hadn't told Nathan she was coming to Run Club, hadn't responded to his latest message asking if she was okay, but as she parked her car and walked toward their usual meeting spot, she knew what she needed to say. The park was quiet, visibility limited by the thick fog that rolled between the trees. She spotted him on the trail, already running, his familiar form appearing and disappearing in the mist. For a moment she simply watched him, this man who had complicated her life in ways she never expected. Then she stepped onto the path and began to run, easily catching up to him. Nathan noticed her immediately, surprise and hope flickering across his face, but he said nothing, just adjusted his pace to match hers. They ran in silence, side by side through the fog-shrouded park. 1 mile, 2 miles, their rhythms synchronized, breaths creating small clouds in the cool air. At the 2-mile marker, Zariah finally spoke. "I went to the bookstore space." Nathan glanced at her but kept running. "And?" "I could see it, all of it, how it could be." They rounded a bend in the trail, their footfalls the only sound besides distant birdsong. "I talked to my mother," Zariah continued, "really talked to her, and I realized something." "What's that?" Nathan's voice was careful, neutral. "That life isn't black and white, that good people can make complicated choices in an imperfect world." They reached a small incline, both automatically leaning forward to maintain their pace. "I also realized," Zariah said, her voice stronger now, "that I've been running from something real because I was afraid of being hurt again, afraid of trusting someone from a world so different from mine." As they crested the hill, Nathan slowed his pace slightly. "And now I'm still afraid," Zariah admitted, "but I'm more afraid of missing something important because of that fear." They came to a fork in the trail. By unspoken agreement, they took the longer path, extending their time together. "The bookstore," Nathan said after a moment. "Is it still something you want?" "It is, but on my terms. As a legitimate business partnership. I'll do the work. I'll make the decisions. You provide the space and initial investment. We split everything 50-50. A smile touched the corners of Nathan's mouth. "That sounds fair. And one more thing," Zariah added, her pace steady despite the conversation. "I want to create a literacy program for adults, free classes, resources for job seekers, a way to help people build better lives. I think that's a wonderful idea." They ran another half-mile in comfortable silence, the fog beginning to lift as the sun strengthened. "What about us?" Nathan finally asked, the question she knew had been waiting on his lips. Zariah slowed, then stopped on the path. Nathan stopped beside her, both of them slightly breathless from the run. "That's more complicated," she said honestly. "I care about you, Nathan, more than I expected to, but there's still so much we have to figure out, so many ways our worlds don't quite fit together." Disappointment flickered in his eyes, but he nodded, understanding. "I'm willing to try, though," Zariah continued, "to see if we can build something real, something that takes the best of both our worlds, like you said." Hope replaced the disappointment. "That's all I'm asking for. A chance." The rising sun broke through the fog, illuminating the path ahead of them. Zariah began running again, and Nathan fell into step beside her. As they approached the final stretch of trail, Zariah turned to him, their eyes meeting as they ran. "Still want to run with me, even if I never forgive you all at once?" she asked softly. Nathan looked at her, breathless, hopeful, and just as he was about to answer, 3 months later, the sign went up outside the brick building. "Second Chances Books and Community." Inside, Zariah directed the placement of the final bookshelves, while Nathan assembled a reading nook in the children's section. "My mother called," Zariah said, checking items off her clipboard. "She's bringing cookies for the grand opening tomorrow." "Does this mean she's finally warming up to me?" Nathan asked, tightening the last screw on a small table. "Let's just say she's reserving judgment," Zariah smiled. "But the fact that she's baking is a good sign. She doesn't bake for just anyone." Nathan stood, dusting off his hands on his jeans. "I'll take it as progress." The past months had been a whirlwind of planning, renovations, and careful steps forward in their relationship. Nathan had kept his promise to be a silent partner in the business, offering advice when asked, but letting Zariah's vision guide the project. They'd compromised on the literacy program, with Nathan providing funding and Zariah handling the curriculum. Their personal relationship had progressed more slowly, both of them mindful of the differences they were bridging. Nathan had introduced Zariah to his world gradually, a charity gala here, a business dinner there. She'd been uncomfortable at first, acutely aware of the wealth surrounding her, but Nathan's steady presence had helped her find her footing. In turn, Zariah had brought Nathan deeper into her life. Sunday dinners with her mother, who watched him like a hawk but had progressed to serving him second helpings, game nights with her friends, volunteer work at the community center where she'd once received after-school care. They were building something new together, a shared world that honored both their histories. "The contractor called," Nathan said, wrapping his arms around Zariah from behind as she surveyed the nearly finished store. "The apartment upstairs will be ready next month, if you still want it." The apartment above the bookstore had been Zariah's idea, a practical solution to her long commute. But it represented something more significant, a space that was truly hers, connected to her dream but separate from Nathan's wealth. "I do," she confirmed, leaning back against his chest. "It feels right." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "So does this?" "All of it." As the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, highlighting the colorful book spines and comfortable reading nooks, Zariah felt a sense of peace she hadn't known was possible. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still moments of doubt, still cultural differences to navigate, still her mother's cautious eyes watching for any sign that history might repeat itself. But there was also this, a dream becoming reality, a partnership built on mutual respect, and a love that had been strong enough to overcome the miles between their worlds. "We should get going," Nathan said, checking his watch. "Run club starts in an hour. Some traditions remain sacred." Every Saturday morning, regardless of weather or workload, they ran together in Piedmont Park, sometimes talking, sometimes in comfortable silence, always side by side. "Race you to the car?" Zariah challenged, already moving toward the door. Nathan laughed, following her. "You know I'll let you win, and you know I don't need you to." She glanced back at him, her smile warm and true. "But I love that you would." As they locked up the bookstore, their shared creation, Zariah reflected on the question she'd asked Nathan in the fog that morning, and the answer he'd given before they'd continued running, side by side, into an uncertain but hopeful future. Some journeys didn't need a destination to be worthwhile. Sometimes the joy was in running the path together, 1 mile at a time, discovering new terrain with each step forward. And in the end, that was enough.